Senator Capito, thank you very much. I want to go back to Mr. Kaplan again. Mr. Kaplan, on Section 232, I think we established that there is no accounting in this budget for an exclusion process on autos. Last year, the department requested a reprogramming for Section 232 expenditures. Would that be your expectation again, that if the President imposes the tariffs, there would be a Section 232 process? There's nothing in this budget to pay for it, and my question is, and now, therefore, what would you expect to occur?
Well, truthfully, I think it's maybe early to anticipate this. I don't know what the result is going to be, and I think I'd rather discuss that with you and the committee if that occasion arises.
I understand that answer, and I mean, I'm accepting of that answer, but the issue for me and for my colleagues is you probably are going to be asking for the opportunity to reprogram funds from something we appropriated them to something else. Just the integrity of the appropriation process is important as we try to make decisions where we're going to put money in this budget. But we can have further conversations. As you indicated, 90 days is not yet expired. That's not very far away. And I'd welcome the chance to have additional discussions about this.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're very welcome, Mr. Kaplan. I'm going to continue on Section 232 in a different vein. In that regard, and similar, I guess, it's in the same vein. This could be for you, Mr. Borman, as well. The department initially told this committee that it expected to receive somewhere between 6,000 and 13,000 total Section 232 product exclusion requests in response to the tariffs on steel and aluminum. As of January, now 3 months ago, the Department of Commerce had received nearly 75,000 requests, 6 times increase over the original projections. The department, this is subjective on my part, I suppose, but the Commerce Department did not adequately estimate the number of Section 232 steel and aluminum product exclusion requests, which has led to an increase for funding and resources to execute the administration's trade agenda. The question that comes with that is, how does the department's 2020 request for the Bureau of Industry and Security and for international trade address the need to carry out timely Section 232 exclusion process?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I'd like to start by thanking you and the Vice Chairman and the committee for the $4.5 million in the FY19 budget for us to work on the 232 exclusion process. And I'd also like to thank you and the Vice Chairman and the staff on an unrelated topic, but codifying our political appointee positions for our Bureau as a result of the Export Control Reform Act, and particularly your staff, Matt Womble and Jean Toll-Eisen, for that. Now to your question.
You're welcome.
Sorry. So for the 2020 budget, our request for the Bureau of Industry and Security builds in that $4.5 million into our base, so that total Bureau number includes that $4.5 million, in addition to the 2 program increases for emerging technology and foreign investment review. And in terms of the estimate on the numbers, we base that on the 2002, 2001, 201 steel safeguards action, where there were roughly, as I recall, about 6,000 exclusion requests. Obviously, there turned out to be quite a few more in the current process. But with the the reprogram authorization that we received in FY18, we have hired contractors to really be able to accelerate our process, and we've made a number of process improvements. So we've now processed more than 45,000 of the roughly 80,000 exclusion requests we have received.
What's the average wait time for a decision to be made?
It's hard to say, because one of the improvements we made at the request of many members and companies was to add a rebuttal process, which makes for more informed decisions, but by definition pushes the timeline out. So I would say right now, if it's a request that did not have an objection, and we just go to Customs and Border Protection to verify the HTS code, you're probably talking in the 70 to 80 to 90-day time frame. That also will be much faster now because CBP is now looking at these right at the initiation of the request. For the ones that have objections, rebuttals, surrebuttals, you're still talking well over 100 days until we get through the first wave. We also have, hopefully at the end of this month, early next month, a new platform for companies to use to submit their requests, which will certainly expedite the process from where it is today.
While Mr. Kaplan was indicative of the speculation involved in my earlier question, so what do we learn from what you just described, and what does that mean how we prepare for 232 in relation to autos? This is, I think, more of a question from you, Mr. Borman, but I think I've heard Mr. Kaplan's answer. So, Mr. Borman?
The Section 232 on autos is done by Mr. Kaplan's shop.
But what should we learn from what you just described about demand? Mr. Kaplan?
Well, I think, again, I don't know where that is all going to come out, but I think what we can learn from looking at what happened here is we've got to be very well prepared and predict what might occur if there is any action on the 232, and we can look at the steel and aluminum situation and learn from that experience.
Okay. Please do. Let me turn to maybe to Dr. Copen, but you as well, Dr. Jacobs. Both of your agencies perform a wide range of important research and operational activities that either rely on or produce sensitive data. Much of that work is done in concert with trusted academic partners. I saw in a recent Wall Street Journal article that it detailed by a couple of attempts by foreign adversaries to hack more than 24 universities and steal valuable research data. As the prevalence of cyber attacks continue to rise, it's important that we protect that data that you produce and that you rely on, as well as your mission of critical operating systems. Do NOAA and NIST 2020 requests address the needs to protect sensitive data and harden cyber defenses? We talked a bit about this with Dr. Dillingham on the census, but this article did capture my attention. A lot of money comes out of our appropriations process from the taxpayers of the United States. A lot of students get engaged in research. And what is it that we do both on our side and on the academic side to protect that from adversarial attack?
Let me begin with a response, Mr. Chairman. Cybersecurity continues to be an absolutely top priority for us at the National Institute of Standards and Technology. The budget request actually includes a slight increase over the prior years. Investment in cybersecurity and related technologies, including broad support for the business community and for small industry, which has control of much data that's important across the U.S. supply chain. NIST's work includes not only the development of frameworks and standards, but also the communication of those processes and those tools, including to the academic sector and across the federal interagency, the entire issue of data security and integrity, and the importance of the use of this information in the nation's interests to ensure that we gain the return on investment and we support our national security interests is absolutely high priority.
NOAA's budget request includes an increase of $5 million, and it's examining both the insider threat as well as scrubbing through secure ingest techniques, external data that we bring in. In most cases, we make a lot of our data free and open and available to the public, so actually having it stolen is probably not an issue because we give it away. But there are other software and operating systems and things like that that we are concerned about protecting, so that's where the insider threat comes into play. But one of our primary concerns is bringing in external data that we use to initialize and drive our forecasts and scrubbing that data to make sure that there's no bad things in it before we assimilate it into our models.
Let me ask just, again, perhaps Dr. Copen, how does the 2020 request address the needs to maintain the United States' position as a driving force in innovation, global scientific and technological innovation? And the other question will be, where does it fail to do so? I would guess it's an easier question for you to tell me where we are succeeding, but what would you want me and others to worry about?
Thank you very much for that question, Mr. Chairman. And indeed, there are difficult decisions that are involved in the formulation of a proposed budget. The priorities at NIST are those that have been identified also by the administration as key areas for leadership in the industries of the future. And this includes the nation's priorities in quantum science and to maintain a position of leadership in quantum information science. The role that NIST plays also in measurement science enables some of the early commercial applications, including those with quantum simulators and the early quantum hybrid computational systems. Artificial intelligence is another major area for the nation. NIST has a lead role in that field, and our budget appropriately prioritizes the importance of artificial intelligence for the future of American productivity and of our scientific enterprise. We also focus on the future of the U.S. semiconductor manufacturing sector and related technologies. And so ultimately, our focus in these areas means that there are several broad areas where NIST has, in this budget proposal, to make some cuts. And NIST's research and development agenda is broad. It covers from the leading edge of measurement science to the deployment of technology in our manufacturing sectors across existing markets as well as emerging markets. And so as you, I'm sure with the staff have seen, this means reductions then across the board, not only in the Manufacturing Extension Partnerships program that Senator Coons asked about, but also in our work in fundamental measurements around health and biological systems, reductions in our physical infrastructure resilience programs, reductions in our user facility maintenance in support of research for the nation, our programs in advanced materials and related manufacturing support, and also reductions in our work in advanced communications, networks, and scientific data systems. So indeed, it's a broad series of impacts. But on the other hand, our focus on the priorities of the industries of the future are intended to not only maintain its core capabilities, but also to ensure America's leadership position in these key industries.
We want to achieve that goal. Mr. Childs, let me ask you a question and then turn to Senator Shaheen. We've heard from you about the agency's desire to expand the broad agency grant program. I wanted to give you a chance to elaborate on your plan for that program and tell us how it would be helpful in advancing minority business.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for the opportunity. As I mentioned earlier, we're trying to look at a new delivery model for MBDA, and I'll just give you an example why. In fiscal year 18, we spent $10.4 million on our business centers, and they served about 3,400 clients. Now, there are 11 million minority-owned businesses, and with our business centers, we were able to test 3,000 plus. So we have to do a more effective job at moving waves of minority businesses up the chain at a time. We know that minority businesses are growing at twice the rate of non-minority businesses, but they're not the size and scale. So through our BAAs, we asked the public to come send us your most innovative projects, and the response was historic. We had the most applications we've ever had, about 6,900, and we were only able to fund 35. So 95% of the projects were not able to be funded, and we think with the second year, we're able to get some data to show the effectiveness of them.